All right, welcome back, everybody. HSC Podcast number 24. Of course, Big Box Steve on the mic. Got the co-host Derek, corner Big Smooth, and Fresh West back on the mic. Good to have everybody on. Don't know if we'll get Big Mike back on anytime. He's in the middle of a job and moving, so maybe once he gets settled, we'll get him back in here. So. Just for those of you watching or listening, YouTube watchers, please like and subscribe. We're not getting a lot of those, but I will tell you our Anchor, 17 new viewers. So, hey, if you're listening on Anchor or Spotify, thank you for listening. Keep listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is since we joined Anchor, it's been great. And so if you guys are listening, keep putting out good content.
Obviously, we have faces for radio.
Yeah, we've got the faces for the radio, or we got the voices for video.
Yeah.
Either way, it's the same. But thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing, liking, or just keep watching, listening on YouTube and Spotify, Anchor, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to. So, season 2 is this officially episode 2 of season 2. And kind of sad news today. So let's kick it off here with James Caan. Man, I mean, just you're talking about a guy in the business for 60 years, right? TV, and movies, combined. But this guy starts in the 60s and still was making movies up to, these last few years.
Yeah.
So. I mean, it's an icon, and we're all movie guys, but it kind of hits close to home when it's these guys that we watched for a long time or we grew up with. Makes you feel older, makes me feel older. I don't know about you guys, but let's talk about James Caan. What's made him great. Before we get into some of his movies, I know we want to talk about some of his best movies, but just what made James Caan great. What are some of your guys' favorite things? Let's start there.
You want to take this one, Wes, or?
No, you can start, Derek.
Well, I mean, it all really comes down to Sonny Corleone. And just the whole, for me, the scene where he's beating the crap out of his brother-in-law and throwing the garbage can on him. And yeah, he just had such a great, he could be so cocky and just, he was such a good actor in that. Like, I think he was up for Han Solo at some point, and I look back and I'm like, he could have done that easily.
Yeah,
he could have been Han Solo.
He auditioned for it, like a lot. Burt Reynolds and Christopher Walken auditioned for it, which I think is funny. But
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Harrison Ford still nails it, right? And
yeah.
I'll tell that story in a minute. We'll talk about that.
Let's get in that. Let's get a little later. So you're talking about James Caan and especially that Godfather scene you're talking about. He has that level of anger when he's acting. That, man, I mean, it feels so real. And maybe it is real. I mean, you don't know. Maybe he was a super angry guy, but he's got that level of anger when he acts, and not all of his parts. And we'll get into some of those too. But that when he does that part, when he plays that part, I think he's at his best for me.
Well, then I'm pretty sure Wes will bring up Godfather Part Two, one of his famous lines.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's just like, it's still in my room. Like, that's just like, it's a money shot right there. No, it's, of course, the first Godfather, it's classic, but for me, it's the second Godfather at the end of it. When they look back, they at the dinner table And that was the time where Michael announced to everybody that he signed up for the Marines, right? And Sonny just racked up. I mean, you want to see the whole movie. I mean, Godfather Part Two is 3 hours long, and it was the last 10 minutes. It's just like, here comes all about Sonny, and he started racking on Fredo. Like, he's like, "Congratulations, Mikey!" He's like, "What are you, a Jap lover?" It's like all the lines at the end of that movie is all James Caan, and yeah, he's like, "You break your father's heart on his birthday," It's like, it's just,
You went to college to get stupid.
Yeah. You went to college and you went stupid, It's like really, it's great. I mean, but there's so many things he did that nobody even knows about. He really did that show Las Vegas.
Yeah.
He was good in it. It was solid.
He did a lot of TV.
And the movie Misery, that literally was miserable. Like, I remember watching that as a kid. That was just freaky.
It's one of my favorite. When I think about James Caan, Misery is definitely one of my favorites. I also think Kathy Bates does an incredible job.
Oh yeah.
But he really, he nails that part. Paul Sheldon, the writer, right? That's one of my favorite James Caan, and I love The Godfather. So let's talk about some of these movies. This guy's been in movies and TV for 60 years, right? There's a lot to unpack when you think about what he's been in. But just talking about movies, is there better than Godfather for him? It's hard to that's hard to say, right? So, a Godfather aside, obviously you already got Misery in there, right? So Misery was great, but so I'll just tell you my favorite, and you guys know why, but if you know me, I'm a Bears fan, so Brian's song. It's one of, but plus just the movie's great, right? Billy D. Williams, James Caan, and it's like, if you don't cry during that movie, there's something wrong with you, because it's about black and white, it's about cancer, it's about football. Like, it brings in so many things that hit so close to home for me anyway, and the Bears on top of that, and Gale Sayers on top of that. So for me, Brian's song is right there, right near the top, even because he doesn't play that Godfather part in there, right? He plays that, overcome adversity, the friendship, and then the cancer, and like, it just hits. There's so much in Brian's song. So for you watching or listening, if you've never seen Brian's song, the original, don't watch the remake. It's horrible. If you haven't seen the original, you are missing out on one of the best movies, in my opinion, ever. So that's for me. That for when I look at James Caan outside of Godfather, that's it for me. Yeah. There's others, but that's number one.
So my whole thing about Brian, like, I never really watched the whole thing until about maybe 4 months ago, and I was going through my own problems, and I was like, I don't want to, like, it was crazy because James Caan helped, Gale Sayers when he got his injury.
Right.
He's like, remember Gale Sayers like, oh, he started feeling sorry for himself. He's like, football, and he just got into him. He's like, you know what? It's like, and he helped them train. He helped them get rehabilitated. And the sucky thing is, then he gets sick.
Right.
And you're like, oh shit, dude. And I hadn't seen the movie in so many years, and I didn't remember how all the stuff. And it's just like, I couldn't watch the end. I was like,
the end is so brutal. The end is so brutal.
Yeah,
it's rough, but such a good movie.
Yeah.
So what do you got, Derek? Besides Godfather, what?
Well, we kind of are a sports show, so I'm going with another one. It's The Program.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
What's his name? What it was? He plays. What's his name?
Program. It's funny.
I don't remember his coach.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but yeah. So Program, again, football movie, but overall great movie. But he does a good job in that.
Yeah, and I feel like every person that's played football loves the program.
Yeah,
It gets you hyped up for football, and he just does a good job. He's that coach that was a winner and then now is under pressure to win again. And
He's not Coach Keck.
gosh, no.
Well, I mean, so he's doing what he has to do to win, right?
Yes.
And he really plays that part well because you kind of see it in him that there is some remorse, but at the same time he's doing what he's got to do to win.
Well, it's like they tried to do it with Any Given Sunday in the pro level. I still think the program is a better movie though.
Yeah.
It's Pacino was the same kind of coach, and
it's not a very high bar for I like In a Given Sunday for what it was, but back then the football movies, they still were trying to I like both movies for what they are, but even now, I mean, they can make so much better freaking movies nowadays about just everything. The program was pretty darn good overall. Yeah. Even just the action scenes and everything with the just the football scenes itself. Any Given Sunday was all right too, but
and the program.
James Caan, I mean, that's a tough one. It's Al Pacino and James Caan. It's like Godfather. It's like Godfather,
Well, then also the program, there's a scene that was cut because they had the scene with where they laid in the road.
Yeah.
And the car drove over him, and they cut the scene out because some idiot did it or tried to do it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, well, that's a funny one. James Caan, Al Pacino, both playing head coaches in similar situations. A little different levels, different storylines, but I mean, I'll take James Caan there. I'll take him in that part.
Even though it should be Al Pacino because it's freaking Al Pacino. I mean, I'm Al Pacino, but I don't even think that's all his fault. It's all about writing. It's all about directing, and it's all about everything. If you're not going to give him the right tools to be a great actor in a movie, he's only reading the lines that are in the script,
right.
But I
think
think
when James Caan it's fucking James Caan. It's Sonny playing a football coach.
But at the same time, what I think with James Caan is, and he kind of went into that away from the Sonny part in a way, because you see it in Elf, you see it in the program. He's more of a subdued, he's just kind of irritated, but he doesn't lose his temper type of thing. So he has like this cool interior, like he's just like, but like in both those movies, it's kind of like he's just teetering, like he's gonna turn into Sonny, but he never does.
He's got a lot of versatility, especially over the years. You see. So for me, he evolved. If you followed him for a long time, or if you just go back and watch some of his old stuff and some of his new stuff, not even the new stuff, maybe like 80s and 90s, things like that, he really evolves a lot, on his range, his versatility. The Robert Meacham and John Wayne, Eldorado, right? Yeah, he plays Mississippi. Like, that's my favorite, right? Because he steals the film, right? He steals that film.
He's playing Ricky Nelson's part because Eldorado is pretty much a remake of Rio Bravo. So he plays the young kind of heartthrob.
Right. And they give him that gun, because he can't shoot, and
the knife. Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I think that for me, because I grew up watching him in that. That was one of I've seen that movie so many times.
Yeah.
And so like just watching him evolve as an actor, and then going into something like what was that other one? Bulletproof. Love him in Bulletproof. Bulletproof is not like I mean, obviously it's a Sandler movie, but he plays
That's a Damon Wayans
it's
movie.
that David Wayans movie, but he plays the bad guy, and this is hilarious in that movie. Just does a great job. I mean, and that's evolution, I think, of him.
Right. Well, and then early he had Thief and Rollerball.
Yeah, Rollerball and Thief. Yep.
Not to be confused with the crappy LL Cool J Chris Klein Rollerball.
And then and so another movie, and he doesn't really star in it, but he's in it. It's one of my favorite movies. World War II buff is A Bridge Too Far. Mm-hmm. You cannot find a movie that has more people that have played in more movies than that one. When you talk about all the people in that movie, it's crazy. So yeah, he's not a star in it or anything, but just to have him in that movie with Sean Connery and all the people, Robert Redford and
Peter O'Toole.
Yeah, and geez, there's so I can't even.
Yeah, there's so many. Ryan O'Neal. Yeah, there's so many people in there. But I will say,
yeah. Oh man, there's a couple others.
True Romance still has more people.
No, I'm saying people that have played in more movies. Like there's those guys have been in so many movies. When you think about that.
Well, that's because it was made so long ago. They have more years to make.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier. Just so many people in that movie. So that one, I think that's great, just to be in a movie like that. So that's awesome for him too.
Yeah. I got Caitlin to watch that movie. Yeah, she wasn't really. I love it, but she wasn't too impressed.
Well, Operation Market Garden. It's one of the most famous of World War. If you're a World War II buff, you understand what that means and how important it was. And yeah, so it's cool. So speaking of football movies for a second, because as we were talking about football movies, it brings us up for me. So what is the best football movie out there? You saying we talked about the program, we talked about Any Given Sunday, but let's talk about there's not James Caan football movies. Let's talk about football movies for a second. Like if you got to pick one, like where are you going with that? So it's like Brian's Song technically is a football movie, so that's one of my favorites, but what about some of these, intense football movies like The Programs and like Any Given Sundays?
This is a tough one. I would say The Program is up there, but what I'm going to go with is the original Longest Yard.
Oh, that's good. Oh, Burt Reynolds action.
Reynolds. Yeah, that one.
That's good. That's fun to watch too.
And because it's it's football plus lots of drama and
yeah, that's tough, and that's old school too. That's back. They made good movies back then. They worked hard at them. So that's good. Wes, what do you got? What do you think?
It is Burt Reynolds. It's kind of hard to beat. It's kind of hard to beat The Longest Yard. But if we're going to go more modern, it's like personally, I don't.
You got Rudy. You got Rudy. You got Invincible. You got Remember the Titans. You got.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Any Given Sunday. You got The Program. You got
Varsity Blues.
You got.
Oh, you just said it. Well, personally, my favorite is Varsity Blues.
I do love Varsity Blues. I'm not gonna lie.
But I know it's not the best. But there's two different categories. There's best and is what you like. With Varsity Blues, especially
Scott Caan, James Caan's son.
Dude,
right, Scott
makes
Caan.
Movie Tweeter. That's not a bad movie. I remember watching that in theater. I was like, why am I watching this movie? Like, it's an MTV movie. Like, what am I doing? And I was like, what is this? Is this a real world episode or something?
John
And it was
Voight though.
really, but guess who makes the movie? It wasn't Tweeter. It was a man named John Voight.
That's what I was just saying.
Dude,
I mean, think about him as a coach, and then Caan, and then Pacino. Now put those three and those coaching roles against.
Oh yeah,
each other.
dude. John Voight's such a dick in that movie. I mean,
He's awesome.
See,
so many
I
classic.
wish we had a coach like that.
Oh yeah.
No, he does a good job. Like he plays such a perfect part. Even though that movie, it's got a lot of the teenage, MTV feel to it, those type of things. So I can't put. I mean, I do like the movie, right? But I'm not gonna.
Vanderbeek's character is the worst, though.
He is terrible.
Kind of ruins it.
You can't put it
because,
next
like-
to Remember the Titans, though. I mean, come on.
But it's Paul Walker. That's like Paul Walker's first movie. Remember, he's like, oh yeah, he's the quarterback, and he gets his, gets his knee blown out, and James Vanderbeek comes in. I'm like, even though that the whole spin on that's like football's not important. Like whatever. Like that's just stupid.
No, I
That's
can't.
stupid.
I will say this with Remember the Titans. My wife, who's not into sports at all, owns that movie.
Yeah. I can't put any. For me, that's my favorite football movie because number one, Denzel. I love Denzel, and I think he kills it. But then the story is great. It's just a great story about adversity and cultural things, and there's a lot of stuff happening there. But Sunshine, I mean, come on, like that guy comes in and then takes over the team, takes them to win the state championship. Like, I mean, it's such a great movie, but it's got a lot of good, feel good movie, but great acting. So Remember Titans for me, I think if you haven't seen it, you got to see that.
Objectively, I would say yes. That's probably the best football.
Not so fast. You guys have forgotten the one I just remembered. It's Woody Harrelson.
Oh yeah,
It's Wesley
Wildcats.
Snipes. It's Wildcats.
But Goldie Hawn is awesome.
Goldie Hawn. Oh shoot!
Because that's a great story.
Michael T.
right?
Williamson.
The story of the girl whose dad, makes her a coach, and he's into football, so she just becomes this great football. It's kind of every father's dream who has a daughter.
You're like your daughter, like watch this movie and study it
and learn here. Wildcats is great, but it's the same thing. It reminds me of Varsity Blues in a sense. It's like an older version of Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
I will tell you one sleeper for people, and I bet a lot of people haven't even heard of this one. And it kind of makes, for now, because we're older now, it makes more sense. The Best of Times.
The Best of Times, yeah. Yeah.
Kurt Russell, Robin Williams.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's and Robin Williams is actually great in that too. And what's the other one? There's another one. Is it All the Right Moves?
Yeah, with Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, right?
Off the team.
Yeah. All the Right Moves. So those ones to me, they're like there's a lot of drama in them, even though so that's why I said Remember the Titans. It feels like there's a lot of drama and stuff, but it's also a football movie,
Well, the Best of Times is about getting ready to play a football game.
What about Nick Nolte?
North Dallas 40.
Dallas 40, right? North Dallas 40. So I mean, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, there's so many of them. Like Invincible, Mark Wahlberg does a great job.
Yeah.
In Invincible, one of my favorites. And so there's a lot out there. But yeah, there's some good football movies.
Well, if we're gonna put anything into football, School Ties.
Yeah. Because it all ties.
Well,
but you just said it earlier, Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy.
How many like my dad? He watches. I was like, he's on watching Rudy, and I'm like, have you seen this movie before? Oh wait a minute, this is your 50th time. He watches it all the time.
young Vince Vaughn.
It's
Yep.
like it's like
and John Favreau.
Yes.
yeah.
I could watch Rudy. I've watched Rudy 50 times probably. I mean, it's a great movie.
Without Rudy, we might not have swingers.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, but Rudy's also that underdog story that everybody loves, you know. Plus it's about like Notre Dame and so for your dad's, you know, age group, like Notre Dame was Notre Dame for them. You know, if you've watched football and you're, you know, in the older demographic, like Notre Dame was the college football team.
Even though my dad loved watching Oregon State whoop Notre Dame's ass. Yes, like big time.
But it was just they were just like were the Patriots of the
Oh yeah.
of college football, you know, and that's just, you know, comparing to like nowadays. But so yeah, Rudy's great. I mean, there is a lot of good ones out there.
The Water Boy.
Yeah. I mean, Sandler, you know, so let's talk Sandler for a minute. So now we brought Sandler up. I mean, this guy's made some great movies, right? And the fact that, you know, he's involved in the making of the movies, in acting in the movies and producing the movies and actually owning the studios that you know that put the movies out, like how iconic and how great has he done for himself and for the movie industry?
I mean, I love older Adam Sandler movies, and it is like, you know, it's kind of like people have a thing with Will Ferrell. You either love him or you hate him, and that's the same thing with Adam Sandler. It's like you either love him or you hate him, but you can't get by like Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, the Waterboy. Those, I mean,
Well,
those
have you seen this new one, Hustle?
No, I haven't yet.
Pretty good.
Because like I said, you either like him or you hate him, and someone in this household isn't a fan of him, so I got to watch it on my own.
Well, because he has some of those ones like where he plays like his own sister. I don't even remember.
Oh yeah, Jack and Jill. That was
Jack and Jill.
Oh
Yeah,
geez, that was weird.
Pacino's in it.
Yeah.
So I mean, so he's gonna have those, and he's had some of those, or more than a few of those.
The Ridiculous Six.
Yeah, and so I get it, you know, but for the most part, when you think about it, I mean, he's done some really good movies. Yeah, most of them are comedy, but they're great. When you know, you talk about Billy Madison's and you talk about Happy Gilmore's, but also like Big Daddy's. You know, Big Daddy was a great movie. Waterboy, you talk about Waterboy, is a great movie.
50 First Dates.
Yeah, another one. That's not like in that comedy realm. It's funny, right? There's definitely funny parts, but it's not a Billy Madison. It's not a Happy Gilmore. It's an actual romantic comedy.
Well, and then Punch Drunk Love. He's very good in that.
Yep. Yeah. So what's your favorite Sandler movie?
That's a tough one. It comes down to two for me. Wes, what do you got?
I mean, I got to go with Happy. I mean, I got to go with Happy Gilmore. Billy is a close second. I mean, I haven't seen too many Sandler movies in the last so many years, but growing up, those were my two favorites. It's just, I love Happy Gilmore. It's hilarious.
It's hard to argue.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, I know so many people, like my brother-in-law. He's just someone that he loves comedy. He's a big fan of Chevy Chase, like Saturday Night Live Chevy Chase. And he asked me one year, he's like, I go, what do you want for your birthday? He said, I want Happy Gilmore. And I got it for him. He's like, this is the best gift ever I got. But yeah, I think I go with Happy over Billy by a little bit. Billy's pretty funny.
I have to go Billy. Yeah. Because Happy is there, but for Billy now, and it's so funny because people hate it now because of this reason. But for me, it makes it actually even funnier. the dodgeball scene, he's actually throwing it at kids.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you have, for me also, it's got Norm Macdonald in it. And
Yeah.
it's got, Chris Farley, and it's got Steve Buscemi in it. Yeah, for me, it's Billy Madison. Happy Gilmore is amazing, though. But I have to go Billy.
It's like the 90s, back when movies were movies. It's like, now it's like everyone's so serious. Like, oh, you can't say that. Like, that's offensive. Like, everything now that has been done in his movies, it's offensive. Like, you can't do that anymore. But back then, it's completely
That's tough.
weird.
Because
Like they want to cancel Revenge of the Nerds now, and
if you're going, if I'm just talking about, his funniest, just overall best movies, it's got to be Billy Madison, I think. But you also have to like that type of comedy, because if you don't, then you don't get it, and then you don't like Billy Madison. But so that plays into like, Big Daddy, I think, is a great movie. Very, very underrated. But I also think that Mr. Deeds was a really good movie that, again, you got to understand the comedy in it, but it does have some storyline, to it as well. But I think overall, I think Billy Madison slightly edges out Happy Gilmore, which is really tough. Because that's a hard one. They're so close.
No, I give you that, because again, it's best movie versus your personal choice, your personal taste, and that's what it comes to. Because I was just talking to my lawyer friend a couple hours ago, and we were talking about Godfather versus Godfather Part Two, and our personal taste is we like Godfather Part Two better, but is it really better than the original Godfather? Like, I just, it's hard to say that's actually, a lot of people say, no, the first Godfather is the best. But I just personally like Godfather Part Two better, just because of the whole two-story, Robert De Niro as a young Godfather, and then Al Pacino, Michael fucking, just being a dick.
I'll tell you, I have a hard time with any part twos being better than part ones, personally. I know they're out there, but even when like part two is better, like it wouldn't be there without part one.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's why I have a hard time with that sometimes.
Okay, okay, let's think of a part two that's better than part one.
Oh,
Terminator.
Yep, Terminator. It's done. Done.
Terminator.
Easy. Easy.
Yeah, you're right.
But see, the other ones you can think of are really close, like Alien and Aliens.
Right.
Very close, because they're two different types of movies. And Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back.
Ooh.
Two really good movies. You can't really see, like Terminator and Terminator 2. They're good. Like Terminator's good, but it's like Terminator 2's up here.
It is.
Where the other ones are very like like Wes said, the preferences. Growing up, it was A New Hope for me.
Yeah.
Now it's more Empire, but it's still, I love them both. And then for me, it's still Alien over Aliens because of the whole creep factor.
Right, right.
Even though it's really hard to watch Alien just because of the fucking thing coming out of the dude's stomach. Like, I can't even watch it. I'm like, no.
What's the masterful thing about that is you barely ever see the alien the whole entire movie.
Yeah.
So it's just that whole intense, like, you don't know what's going on.
Oh, hold on. Wrath of Khan. There we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
But that's easy because
Wrath of
motion
Khan.
picture was such garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't
No, motion picture was garbage.
terrible. I mean,
It's hard to watch.
yeah. Okay, if you take all the original, the six, I mean,
You got to take out the odds.
Undiscovered Country, which wasn't very good. Final Frontier, not very good. Voyage Home, everybody kind of likes that movie, but
Search for Spock.
The Search for Spock.
Come on.
The Search for Spock The Search for Spock was underrated a little bit.
Yes.
Way underrated.
The motion picture was.
Yeah, and I mean, but that's
But the
that's
freaking
an obvious-
Rathacon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the
obvious.
Rathacon was like 20 times better than all the other. You could take
Yeah.
all the Next Generation movie. You could take all the Star Trek movies,
Yeah.
and Rathacon is the best.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the Star Wars for a second, since you brought it up, or let's talk a little bit about that. So first of all, let's talk 1 through 6, right? So you were just talking about New Hope, Empire, right? So really, that's 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 would be considered the other ones. But as they're in actual sequence of the storyline, 1 is, Phantom Menace, and going through that. First, I do want to talk about 4, 5, and 6. So what's the best one of that? So is it New Hope? Is it Empire Strikes Back, or is it Return of the Jedi, and why?
Well, Wes, I know where you're going to go. Why don't you start us off?
No, you could start there.
Okay, well, I'll start, and I'm going to say A New Hope. Because it's everything that Return of the Jedi wanted to be, but it was better. And the whole thing is you had A New Hope on its own could stand the test of time by itself. It had a beginning, had a middle, it had an ending, and it had a definitive ending.
Yeah.
Everyone thought. And the whole, it's just from the beginning to the end, the maturation. And it's cool because it's kind of like you have to take all the movies into account. But what we used to play the game, like a drinking game, how many times does Luke Skywalker be a bitch? And in that movie, it's like a million. You get drunk within the first hour.
Dude, it was 50 times in the first 40 minutes. You see fucking blind.
But you see, he goes from that and then to the end of the movie where he lets go and uses the Force to save the day.
Yeah, it was all Ben.
I mean, I think that when you talk about that, the movie stands alone, and it does have the sense of, if no other movies came out, if that was the only Star Wars movie, it would be a good movie, and it would be it would be a movie, it'd feel like a whole thing, right, from beginning to end. So I get that. Yeah, I mean, that's a good.
All right, so we're only doing the first 6.
No, just talking about the first 3. Just talking about, because you're not going to compare the other 3 to these 3, right?
Pretty much the first 3 and then everything else.
Yeah. So let's talk about, just for you, Wes, New Hope, Empire, or Return of the Jedi.
I hate to say this, but I think Derek's right. Even though I have a personal preference to Empire Strikes Back, watching The New Hope is just funny because of the acting and the interaction between all of the characters and the writing. And let's go back to the auditions for Han Solo. That's the best. That's almost better than the movie. It's because you got freaking Christopher Walken, you have Burt Reynolds, you have Steve McQueen. What they really wanted was Steve McQueen. And the funny part was, Han, fucking Harrison Ford is he's just doing cold reads for Princess Leia. And George Lucas looks at him after a while. He's like, you know what? You're better than all these people, dude. I mean, you're perfect because you're just natural. And if you watch, the first Star Wars, he's so natural. He doesn't try. There's no overacting because, going to so many acting classes that I've done, and all these teachers say less is more.
Right.
Don't try. Less is more. And he's just so natural. And the interactions, and Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher is really good in that movie too. I mean, she's just really good. And when it comes to acting and writing, and that's the basis of a movie. New Hope to me is, and that's why it was nominated for Best Picture. And honestly, Annie Hall won that year. Is anybody to tell me that Annie Hall should have beat out Star Wars Best Picture?
Well,
really.
not
But
now.
I'm not. But Annie Hall is a good movie. Don't get me wrong. But if you're looking at it now, you watch that movie, and the funny thing about it is George Lucas cringed. He had a vision, and he's like, "This is gonna suck." He thought the movie was gonna suck because he couldn't create what he wanted to in his head. And
Thankfully, he didn't.
Well, yeah, and then of course he has to screw it up by, oh yeah, we're gonna just change it. 20 years later, it's like, no, it's perfect. Just like the Empire is perfect. Don't screw it up. But personally, of course, I like Empire Strikes Back because that's my first memory as a child. My first memory as a child was 2 years old at Clackamas Town Center. We walked into the theater late, and my first memory was Archie being spit out by that monster in the sea, right? That's my first memory as a child. And then my next memory is some black robot chasing around some boy with a freaking lightsaber. I'm like 2. Like, thanks, Mom and Dad. But
Empire was right there.
Trust me, the thing I like about Empire is how they made Darth Vader scary. Yeah. That's a scary dude. If you're not scared, like as a child, like looking at, just even his voice was lower.
For me, it's definitely it's hard to not say that New Hope's not the best of the three. I think Empire and New Hope are very close. I do think that Jedi gets a bad rap because I do love Jedi too. Because they do a decent job of kind of wrapping up the first two. I just love the first part of Jedi, the Jabba scenes. That once they get after that, then again it's not as good for me anyway. But there's a lot I like about that. But yeah, I'd say New Hope's probably the best for sure.
But that's something to be said. But how many third movies wrap up a trilogy like Jedi? Honestly,
that's what I was saying. They did a good job with the wrap.
It wraps it up pretty darn good, especially when Luke whoops Vader's ass. Yeah. You're not gonna get much better scenes than that. It does wrap it up pretty darn good. I just don't like how they changed the end of Jedi. Of course, George is like, well, maybe I messed up here, so let me change all this stuff in the movie. Like, no, just leave it the way it is.
But and so that comes
the music.
The music at the end. You're like, what?
I'm like, I'm wanting to hear some Ewoks singing and stuff, and then we get into instead like da 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 da. No, this is stupid. I want to hear dub dub.
Yeah, because they got to show all the other planets and things like that.
I know, but man, I grew up with that song. I know. That was in my head. It's ingrained.
So the reason they have that, right, is because they put in the first 3 of the series, right? So they put in those first 3, and that's where they put in those cut scenes at the end of Jedi. They basically coming from the first 3. So let's switch to the first 3 for a second. Whoa.
First, we got to talk about the travesty that is the Max Rebo band.
Oh yeah,
and bringing in that dance number with another singer,
right?
And it's like, no, that's just dumb.
Yeah, in Jedi. Yeah, minus some of those, because again, those aren't part of the originals, right? That's all additions.
Yeah.
So they're definitely adding those into the movies, and it does not help. I don't think it helped any of the movies, to add in that stuff.
Everything that they added was a disservice to the movies.
Yeah. 100%. But I think they felt like they had to because it was all added after they ran through the first few movies, or they make Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and
well, that's one thing. But the only thing that really bothers me about what they added was the whole Jabba Han Solo scene in The New Hope. Like, freaking Jabba comes in and Han's like bossy Jabba. I'm like, really, dude? It's like,
well,
no,
technically, that was a scene that was already made. They just didn't have Jabba the Hutt yet.
Right.
But it was a dude, and it was the whole part with Boba Fett in it. That was let's add Boba Fett to everything.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
But
it was bizarre.
Yeah.
Or when they show the Force ghosts at the end, and then it's Hayden Christensen.
Right.
It's like, what's the rules here? So you have why can't you have Ewan McGregor then?
Right.
It's like, why are you having Alec Guinness, old Obi-Wan? Like, can they be whatever Force ghost they want to look like?
No, it's because technically Hayden Christensen, when he turned to the dark side, he was no longer a Jedi. So that was the last time he was an actual Jedi. That's why they moved it back.
No, we're getting deep now.
Yeah.
Now we're getting some New Republic shit. Old Republic shit.
So let's talk about 1, 2, and 3, episode 1, 2, and 3, which are technically 4, 5, and 6, right? So what's wrong with it? What's good about it? What's bad about it? Like, what do you like about those three? Because I think Phantom Menace, I think, gets a bad rap. Personally, I see a lot of people that talk really poorly about it, and I think it's I think it's better than what people give it credit for. Yeah, are there some annoying things like Jar Jar and some things like that? Sure, there is, but the overall movie is pretty good. Like they play into the storyline. They're starting everything. It's got one of the best lightsaber fight scenes between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and what's his name? Qui-Gon. Yeah. So is Phantom Menace as bad as that is? And of those three, like, which one's the best?
Well, it's hard for me because here's my memories, because coming up, we were all Star Wars people, and there's so much anticipation for these movies. And Wes knows we went and saw it at midnight. We got into a first showing here in Portland because our friend spent the night for like 2 or 3 days there waiting in line. And that was the thing, is back, you don't see that anymore. You had to wait in line, sleep overnight for 3 or 4 days because of this movie. And I think that's the issue, is so much hype on this. But no, besides Jar Jar and I feel bad for him, but Jake Lloyd, they were both kind of like, eh. Besides that, the story was really good. You had the whole Jedi, because that's what you always wanted, more about Jedis. And that's what you got in this first 3 movies.
Yeah. Well, they also really set up the whole understanding of how the Empire came about, right? Mm-hmm. And how this changed, and it's such an interesting. When I watched the first 3, I start looking at the world we live in right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like you get this kind of you think that you're pushing for the right thing, and then all of a sudden, once you get what you want, then all of a sudden you realize you just fell into a first galactic empire.
And to go
into a Sith trap.
Right.
Well, and to go any further, if you're on the right wing, you're thinking Biden is the emperor, and if you're on the left wing, you're thinking Trump's the emperor.
Right. And either way,
they might both be the emperor.
Right.
And the funny part about them both is they tout themselves both that they've never drank in their lives. What the hell happened?
Right.
I think it's funny.
So of the first 3 though, which one's the best? Of those first 3.
Oh, dude. Probably Go ahead, Derek.
I'm gonna go 2, second movie,
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones, because you get the clones, you get Jango Fett, you get Mace Windu in action, you get to see Yoda fight Count Dooku. You get the whole story. Yeah, so it's like, oh, now you know how the clone troopers came apart for the Clone Wars. It kind of sets it up because you know what's going to happen in the third movie, obviously. So I like the second one.
Yeah, I do like what you're talking about at the end, especially when it's like, you know, the Execute Order 66 and you see the whole turn thing happening, but also before that you get a lot of Jedi fighting, and you see what, you know, why the Jedi are prominent, and how they can control, you know, the wars. So I mean, I do like 2. That's a good. What do you think, Wes?
I agree. For a little bit different reasons. You know, at first, you know, it gets a bad rap for the whole, you know, Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman love scenes, which I don't care about. Like, it's stupid, but that's not what it is for me. It's literally how he kind of matures into sort of a Jedi, and at the end where he has to save Obi-Wan in a sense, you know, because I mean, everybody know, you all know, like, if you're, you know, you follow Star Wars, you know he's gonna become Darth Vader, but you see that glimpse of him being the savior, which that's what he's supposed to be. And at the end of the whole saga, that's what he is. He basically kills the Emperor, and it's congratulations, you know. Even though he's a dick, he just killed, like, you know, hundreds of thousands of Jedi, but you know, at the end, he's the hero. You know, you see the glimpse of that. You know, it's like, oh, you're like, oh, Obi-Wan's gonna die. Count Dooku's gonna kill Obi-Wan, and then all of a sudden he saves him, and you're like, oh, sweet, dude. And then you see that glimpse of what a badass he could have been. You know, which I do like. Revenge of the Sith, just the beginning of it. It's just when he whoops Count Dooku's ass.
No, the whole beginning of Revenge of the Sith is a great movie, I think. Of the 3, right? I think they're all pretty equal, to be honest with you. I think the storyline in Phantom Menace is better. I think the action and what happens in 2, Attack of the Clones, is more exciting, more fun to watch. But I think Revenge of the Sith is like that. The buildup you've been waiting for finally happens, and then it's like, and now you really want to know what happens next, you know. And it's also like, you also feel like, man, I told you so. Like, you knew this was gonna happen.
But
Like,
the beginning of, yes, I agree. The beginning of Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin fights Dooku, is pretty badass.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the better save. I mean, it's pretty awesome, you know.
Do it.
And freaking whoops his ass, and that was cool. And then it just kind of like, like from there, it's like whatever. You know, the ending. I don't like the lightsaber duel between the end. That I thought that was way overblown. Like, it's just like, what are you doing, dude? It's Obi-Wan versus Anakin. This is the best you can do here. Like, even though the ending was cool when he, you know, that was profound.
I mean, some people call it the best lightsaber battle in all of Star Wars.
Of course it is, because we're in a video game generation. A lot of these people have never seen Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
That Luke against Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back, even Empire and Jedi, there's nothing fancy about it. It's just boom, 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 you know.
So last question I have for you guys. Let's say you have never seen Star Wars, right? You've never seen any of them. Like, is it best to just watch from 1 to 6? So if somebody comes and says, I've never seen Star Wars, are you going to start them at Phantom Menace and let them watch the whole thing straight through? Because to me, if I
No, you
watch
start them at 4.
well, that's the thing. It's like then you ruin 1, 2, and 3, right?
Yeah, but you want to start them off with the best movie. I mean, if you want to get them hooked into Star Wars, you start them with A New Hope.
But I'm just saying, doesn't like watching 1 through 6, because obviously we've seen all of them multiple times, right? But go back if you have never, and watch just 1 through 6 in a row, and watch the storyline develop. Even though these were made after, they did a better job than I think they get credit for of tying the remakes of the originals, or what should have been before, into the originals.
But if you're going to do that, then you got to do Rogue One also.
No,
Well, there's a ton of them.
No. So I have so many people telling me that Rogue One is the best one, and
I love Han Solo. I mean, then you gotta watch right?
I personally, I love Han Solo just because of what it is, but I'm looking at Rogue
Solo's
One.
great.
The last hour of Rogue One is a pretty darn good movie.
Well,
like just everything.
I got a funny story. So we're watching Rogue One, and then afterwards, my wife, I was like, "Oh, what'd you think?" She's like, "Oh, I just didn't know that." Spoiler: if you haven't watched this, close your earmuffs. She's like, "I didn't know they were all gonna die," and you're like, "Well, none of them were in A New Hope." So,
so that's why you don't watch A New Hope first.
But it's like
exactly. That's why you watch.
Like you would think if they would have, they would be there in A New Hope if they would have.
Yeah. And for anybody, like, this isn't like about numbers. You don't start from just 1 to 6. Like, you go from Rogue One, you go to 4. It's like go 4 to 6. Yeah, it's just.
I just like you start at 4 because it's still the mystery of everything going on. Like, because the prequels and Rogue One, they try to fill in the gaps of everything.
Yeah, that's the job of those.
But so it's like, you go into New Hope and the first thing you see is the Corellian Corvette coming through and then the huge Star Destroyer coming to take it on. You have no idea what's going on. Or if you watched Rogue One, you're like, oh, okay, we're starting off from the end of Rogue One. And it's like.
Well, but also, like, yeah, I mean, you also, what I'm saying is there's a difference, though, between the buildup of the turn of democracy and the turn of what's the overturn and basically the government, which is obviously the universal, or the government of the whole universe. But still, it's like that change. I think that plays an important part in the whole series to me, of what because a lot of it's just Luke and Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Princess Leia, Han Solo. When you think about the 4, 5, and 6, the story is just these guys. Where the story of Star Wars is much bigger than them.
Yeah, but it's always been about the Skywalkers.
Well,
even the last 3, they turned it into a Skywalker stories.
Yeah. But again, it's Anakin, is what it's about at the beginning. Phantom Menace. So there's definitely a lot to the story that I think gets lost in not understanding the backstory. But so and again, you can like go first and then go back to the backstory, and I think get a similar effect. I get that.
I mean, that's how we grew up.
Yeah,
and we loved them.
Yeah,
Wes,
awesome.
what would you do if you could have any movie to start with for Star Wars? Where would you have someone start who's never watched them?
I mean, the problem is I would want them to start with 4, but for a lot of people, they're just going to scratch their heads like, why am I start with 4? Why want to start with 1? And it's like, okay, I start with 4, go to 6, and then I gotta go back to 1, and then okay, you get it, but it's kind of hard to start with 4 when people are just used to 1 and just learn everything the way it is, So that's a tough one.
For me, though, But how many people are going to get turned off by watching Phantom Menace compared to watching A New Hope?
Of course. Well, but see, these are
But that's also you have bias though.
yeah.
Well, no, because I've actually done this. My sister-in-law and ex-brother-in-law had never seen Star Wars. So what did I do? I gave them 4, 5, 6 first and got them hooked. And then they're like, can we watch 1, 2, and 3? And then it was like, but because 4, 5, 6, it's Yoda. It's like the mystery of Yoda. And then you go to 1, 2, and 3, and you're like, wow, Yoda's a badass. That's why 4, 5, 6 is so better, because it's in the future, and then you go back and you're like, oh, this is when they were young.
Oh, and here's another point to that is, I mean, honestly, historically, you can see that, the 4 is made in 77, and then you go through a chronological timeline of just, motion pictures and stuff like that. You understand that the first movie technologically is not sound versus Phantom Menace.
Right. And you have kids that have issue with that.
Yes, they do.
I don't know, though. Phantom Menace, are you going to take their battle going up against the space, the little thing? Or are you going to take the trench and blowing up the Death Star?
Well, I know we are, but again, what Wes, I think what Wes is making, what I think he's saying is, when you just look at the production value and the CGI and just the overall movie, it's hard for, I would say, maybe a younger generation person to pick up New Hope and be like, this looks like old as crap, and I don't want to watch this.
but see, this is the way we grew up, and this is my personal view on movie making. I want something that looks real, and to me, the 4, 5, and 6 is real, and I like that. But younger people, they grew up in a different style of movie. That's why you see all this stuff now. It all looks fake. But it's all a video game. Why? Because everyone's playing video games.
So what are we calling young? Because my 5-year-old's favorite is Empire Strikes Back.
Well,
did you start him from the beginning?
Of course.
Started him from 4.
Yeah, so you didn't start him from 1.
Because I know which way to suck him in.
Well, maybe that's it. But I'm talking about people 20 to 35. That's the type of age group. Yeah, I know a lot of people that are younger than 20. That's like, whoa, you're kind of thinking like I was when I was a kid. Like, what's going on here? But I'm talking about, this video game generation. They are used to. They're gonna like, the Phantom Menace and all these, because it's like a video game. It's weird. I mean, I like it looks. The Return of the Jedi, that fights. When they. The Death Star scene in the first New Hope's great, whatever. But that whole fight scene in Return of the Jedi, like when they're going after the Death Star, it's pretty badass. Yeah. I mean, that looks completely real. It's not like all the new movies. It's like, whatever. Like, I don't care.
It's all models.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so I mean it's a hard argument, and who knows, obviously if you want to watch the best of the series for sure, but I do think for me, like, there's something to, when I watch something like that, I want to understand the whole story too, and so I think there's also people that when they watch that and then they go back and they watch the originals, they're like, now this is wasted because I already know what's happening, if you really get it.
Yeah, but well, think about some movies like, I don't know, Memento or Inception, right? You don't know what's going on in the entire movie until the very end. And that's what's the entertaining. If those movies were put in order so you saw them, then they wouldn't be as entertaining.
Yeah.
No. Inception is a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, right.
That's freaking crazy.
Well, yeah, and it's a few hours versus 6 movies.
Yeah.
We'll just put in all the Christopher Nolans then together.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, freaking DiCaprio.
All right, well, let's wrap up here, guys. So good stuff. So hopefully you guys listening, if you're not a Star Wars fan, hopefully you are now, and now you know what to watch and what to look for. Final thoughts.
2 words: Han Solo.
Solo. Wes.
Luke Skywalker.
And I'll finish off with James Caan.
There you
Rest
go.
in peace. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like. If you are an Anchor or a Spotify or an Apple, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. You can follow on there and subscribe on there as well. But thanks for joining, everybody. See you guys next time.